everyone, it's Kristie here from KP Creatives with another video for Two Scrapbook Friends. Today we are going to be making a very fun and festive holiday card using some alcohol inks on some great pieces of acetate that have been created by Pretty Little Studio. So I've got the supplies listed here, and I will pop this up again at the end of the video in case you need to reference this later on. So one of the things we're going to be using in today's card project is this fantastic dainty die, Happy Holidays, from Photoplay's Say It With Stamps series. I've die cut this off camera on a piece of gold paper from Lawn Fawn. And I'll just set that aside so we can use it later. I've then got a piece of acetate. This comes in an 8x8 sheet, and it is from, as I mentioned, Pretty Little Studio. And you can see that it has some great holiday words on this acetate. So when you get a piece of acetate like this, if you run your fingers across the right side of the acetate, you can feel the raised letters. The other side, the back, is totally smooth. So you'll see how we go through this process today, because we're going to do two things to this piece of acetate. First thing we're going to do is foil the right side, the side you can feel. And we're going to foil that using some gold foil. Any gold foil that you have will do. You could use your Mink machine, you can use a laminator, whatever machine you have that does foiling with acetate, so you can use. And we're going to foil that in gold, and then we're going to put alcohol ink on the back. And when you flip it over, you'll see the alcohol ink background. So it might sound confusing, but stick with me. We'll take you through all the steps that you need to understand where we're going today. So I did do my foiling off camera, so we didn't have to wait for this. So I used this piece of sparkly gold foil that I had in my collection, and I've foiled that, and you can see the final result here. So look at that shimmery gold words. You could just leave this on your card and it would be absolutely beautiful. But I really liked to be able to foil the words there. I mean, they look great in black too. You could leave it black and embellish your card as is. But for the holidays, I wanted to jazz it up a little, and I loved that sparkly gold foil to be able to give it a little bit of a kick and bring things up a notch. So you could use silver, gold, whatever colors you like. I've got a piece of the Neenah Classic Crest Solar White in the 80-pound behind this, just so we're going to have that get just a tiny bit of dimension on our card front, but we'll pop that on later. And I've got a piece of the Neenah Classic Crest Solar White 110-pound for our card base. As I mentioned, that large sheet of acetate comes in 8x8. I've cut this piece down to 4x, actually just a little bit smaller than 4x4. It's 3.75 inches by 3.75 inches square. And the final card front that we've got is 4¼ inches by 4¼ inches square. So we'll get a nice white margin on our card. So as I mentioned, we're going to be developing our background using alcohol inks. So a few things, if you're not familiar with alcohol inks, you should definitely get some of the alcohol blending solution from Ranger. It's going to help you blend things together, whether you're using Yupo paper or acetate or any other type of medium for your alcohol inks. It's going to help you blend and be able to move colors around on whatever substrate or paper you decide to use. So make sure you have some of that handy. We're going to be using a mix of pearl alcohol inks, which have a really lovely shimmer to them, and some regular alcohol inks which don't have that shimmer. So this one is Alcohol Pearl Deception, which has the shimmer. We've got regular alcohol ink Butterscotch, regular alcohol ink Lettuce, and another pearl Smolder. So I went through my alcohol ink swatch ring. I've swatched these alcohol inks on Yupo paper, and I thought those four colors, here they are here, swatched out, would be a great combo for Christmas and would look great backing that lovely gold foil that we already did. So on my swatch ring, I just wrote the names of the alcohol inks on the back so I can easily find them within my stash, and I know which ones I need to have to get working on my project. Last thing you'll need for alcohol inks is some type of tool to move the ink around. I use this air blower. This is from Tim Holtz line from Ranger. Really handy tool. You could also use the Ranger heat tool if you wanted. It has 2 heat settings, so you could use that. Or you can, if you have an embossing gun that has a really low heat setting, you could use that too. You just have to be careful because if you're applying heat to acetate or Yupo paper, they're synthetic material, so you don't want to apply direct heat because it could melt your project. So be careful, do some testing. That's why I like using the air blower, because I don't have any risk of making anything melt. So we're going to take our piece that's already been foiled. I'm going to turn it over so the foil is touching this piece of scrap paper. And you can see here that we've got the back side of that foil sheet is facing upwards. So I'm going to give the pearl alcohol inks a really good shake because we want that shimmer to be distributed throughout the alcohol ink that we're using. So I'm going to go in first with the Deception, and I'm just going to put a few drops around our square here. Then I'm going to go in with Butterscotch. Get some of that mixing around. Then we'll go in with Lettuce. And there is no method to the madness here. I'm just randomly putting some drops down. And you'll see in working with the alcohol inks, you can really move things around. If you're not liking how colors are blending, it's pretty forgiving, and you do have some time to work with it. So I've got this Smolder Pearl, just going around with a few drops of that. Then I'm going to go in with some drops of the alcohol blending solution just to get things mixing a little. Just a few drops. Okay, so we've got stuff moving around. I'm going to come in with the air blower. And I'm just giving quick puffs of air. The nice thing about using a tool like this is the alcohol inks dry really fast, and they dry even faster if you're applying air to it. Now, I've got this piece of acetate turned over on just a piece of scrap paper, so I'm not worried about it going over the edges. And we're just continuing to apply the puffs of air, get those colors mixing. I'd like to get some really rich cranberry reds happening, so I think once we dry this first layer, I'm going to add in more of that Deception Pearl and really get that to stand out. I think that will really show off the gold foil that we have. Now I'm just raising the air blower up and really just pushing a little bit harder on the blower to get those last bits to dry. Okay, so I'm going to flip this over so you can see how it's looking so far. So there you go. You can see we're starting to get some color on that background, but I really want that Deception color to show through more. So I'm just going to fold over this piece of scrap paper, and we'll just put this down again, face down. So we've got the black font facing up. That's how we know we've got it the right way. I'm going to give that Deception Alcohol Pearl ink another shake. And I'm going to go in pretty heavy-handed on the drops here because I really want that red to darken up and show through. And I'm going to go a couple of drops of the Smolder. And again, both the Deception and the Smolder are the pearl style alcohol inks. So you can see they've got that really lovely shimmer. So I'm going to come in again with the air blower tool. You can really control where you want your inks to go here. which is a really nice advantage of using a tool like this. And I want to get a little bit more movement in the center area. So I'm just going to have some blending solution here so we can get things moving a little more. And you can see we're starting to darken up, get some more rich colors, which is exactly what we were going for. I need a little bit more blending in this area. So you can see you can really revive these alcohol inks in certain areas. If you want something to look a little different or you want one color to be more dominant, you really have the opportunity to do that. And I kind of have gone back to almost clear in these two little sections. So I'm going to come back in with the Deception Pearl and let's see if we can deepen up those couple of spots. So that looks good. I'm going to go from a distance with the blower just to start to get that to dry up. So this is very different than working with, you know, dye inks or pigment inks. It's a really cool medium to use, especially if you're making a bunch of backgrounds. It's so much fun to play with alcohol inks. So I think we've got that dry-ish. It's not totally dry, but I'm just going to come in with a little bit more of the smolder just in that almost center section, just to add a little bit more depth. And I think just one more drop here, and I think that's probably going to be good for our background. So again, if you had the Ranger heat tool, you could use that, I think, on the low setting. Just make sure you've got some paper to test it out first, because you really don't want to go through the process of getting your color exactly how you want it and then having there be an issue if you're applying heat to it. So that looks great. So I'm going to take this and flip it over. And I just want to see what it's going to look like on the paper, and that is really, really cool. So you can see different gradients of the color. Some spots it's heavier, some lighter, and I just absolutely love that. So I'm going to set that off to the side, get the scrap paper out of the way, and let's get working on putting this card together. So because we've got this acetate piece, so you can see there are still some spots where it's still a little damp, but that's totally fine. We are going to bring in some score tape. I've got my 1/8 of an inch score tape handy right now. So I'm going to put pieces of it from corner to corner right on the back of the piece of acetate before we adhere it to that white square of the Neenah 80 pound, just before we adhere to our card base. So we're going to have this go edge to edge. Score tape is a really strong adhesive, so you know that once you've adhered it to your project, you are not going to have to worry about anything coming apart. And I'm just going to put a couple pieces just across. There we go. So now just make sure that's pressed down. Take off the release paper. And sometimes the tape will come with it if you haven't pushed it down totally, which you can see was happening there. But we just reinforced that, so that should be okay. Going to get these last few pieces off, and then we will be good to go. I hope everyone is having fun getting ready for the holidays and getting set to have some great projects on the go. It's always a very fun and busy time of year. You know what? I'm actually noticing that the score tape is lifting a little bit, And I might reinforce it with some liquid glue because I can see in a couple spots, it's pretty good for the most part, but in a couple spots it's actually popping up. And I wonder if it's just because that alcohol ink is still a little bit damp. So if you wanted to be sure you weren't going to have that problem, you could definitely wait. I'm impatient, so I'm not going to wait, but I am going to just dab on a little bit of the Lawn Fawn liquid glue, which, as you know, if you've been following along in the videos, this glue dries clear. So if a little bit of it peeks out here and there, that's okay. And since we already have like a splotchy alcohol ink background, I don't think it's a big deal to have this, the liquid glue on our project here. So I'm going to take this, very carefully flip it over, and we're going to have this lined up with our square of the white piece of the Neenah in the 80 pound and just press that down. And that looks great. So now it's backed onto that nice piece of the Neenah, so we didn't have to adhere it right to our card base. So now we're going to adhere this to our card front. Get this extra piece of scrap paper out of the way so that we don't get any ink transferred where we don't want it. And I had some card planning down on this scrap piece of paper here. So just to show you that you can use all of your scraps in your card making. No one will ever see my little notes there. And we're going to get a nice even margin on this card here. I was actually crafting with a friend in person the other day, which was so much fun, but I haven't unpacked my bag, so I don't have my secret weapon ruler within reach right now. So that's why I'm just going freehand, but making sure that we've got that nice even margin around. So I hope the camera is picking up the beautiful shimmer of that foil and the gorgeous colors in that alcohol ink. Oh, I think this is really unique and really fun. So now we're going to put that Happy Holidays sentiment. Again, this is from the Photo Play Say It with Stamps series. Just going to take my Lawn Fawn liquid glue and dab on this dainty die cut. If you wanted to, you could use spray adhesive. You could also, if you have any of the adhesive sheets, like the ones from Pink and Maine, I know Two Scrapbook Friends is carrying those now. I actually just had some of those in my recent order. You could have die cut this Happy Holidays with the adhesive sheet on the back of the gold foil, and then you could have just peeled that off and had it basically become a sticker. I die cut these before I got my order, so unfortunately I wasn't organized enough to do that. So we're going to go with the liquid glue today, which will give us just a nice bit of wiggle room as we work on our project. I'm just getting it a little bit off the die cut there. Seems to be a bit of a, I don't know if it's a bit of a clog or what's happening here. Just stick with me as we work through the last bits. I'm going to dab the excess glue off because we seem to get a couple of bubbles of glue, which does happen sometime, but it is nothing to panic about. All right, so I'm just going to bring one of those pieces of scrap paper back and just dab off the excess glue onto the scrap paper so we don't get too much glue oozing out on our final project. So I'm going to go for adhering this in the middle-ish of this card. Does not have to be perfect, but we'll go with as close to the middle as we can here as we just pop this gorgeous dainty die cut down. and that looks great. So I'm just going to get that scrap paper out of the way. And our tape release paper out of the way as we finish up this great little project here. And I'm just going to come in with a baby wipe quickly so that I can get rid of that glue and I don't end up sticking something to my mat that doesn't belong there. Okay, so here we go with our gorgeous final card, and I just absolutely love that. I can see the adhesive just needs to be reinforced a little bit. So I'm going to put an old acrylic block just on top and let that liquid glue set up nicely. All right. So here we go. Beautiful, happy holidays with that gold, rich colors in the alcohol ink background. And that is our finished project for today. So I hope if you haven't dabbled with alcohol inks that you learned a little bit about how they work today. The importance of having that blending solution really does make a difference in how the alcohol inks will move through the paper that you're working on. And if you do have alcohol inks and you haven't swatched them out, you can watch a lot of Tim Holtz videos. He's big on swatches and they really do help to figure out what colors go together and how you want to use them. And of course, as we've talked about in other videos, if you are swatching your products, make sure you swatch them on the paper that you, or the medium that you most use them on. So I've done my swatches on Yupo paper because that's mostly what I use if I'm using alcohol inks. So there you go. Happy holidays. I hope you're having fun continuing to work through holiday crafts. If you have a moment, please take a second to subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.